The recording has started. Thank you so much. Greetings to our live online learning online participants. This is USEC Live Online Learning Competition Research Skills. Very fun session. Please note that USEC stands for UNISA Science Engagement Center, meaning that we are engaging with you online or physically. So we try to ensure that we engage with you in all platforms. Please note that we have our social media page as well as our email address is iset@unisa.ac.za, and on our social media we are there on Facebook, which is iset Lego. On YouTube we are iset UNISA. Just subscribe and just be updated. Without wasting time, I would like to welcome you once again to this session. To our online participants, thank you so much for being part of the session, and to those that are watching the recording, thank you so much for taking time to watch this recording. And over to you, Mr. Caspar Johannes van Starren.
Thank you very much, Miller. Welcome, everybody. We are a small class, but that's going to be a good class. We only have a few small house rules for today. We'd like to ask everyone to please mute your cameras to save data and bandwidth. Also to mute your microphones, keep all the background noise to a minimum. If anybody has a question at any point in time, please feel free to raise your hand. And if you have some mic problems, please use the chat area. Then I think that's all from my side. Let's have a fun session. Over to you, Dr. Gous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so here we are, session 3, and it's about the research skills. And so we're kind of building on what we did yesterday, where we were saying we do initial investigations, and now we're going to start getting a focus. And so hopefully out of the presentation, you'll also realize that research skills are, again, that thing that those skills that need time to develop. And so as we go along, you'll see everything is building on what we've done in the previous sessions. All right, so let me quickly okay, so there we go. There's something that I've learned to do as well, is share a screen. There we go. And you can see my screen?
Yes, Dr. Gous.
Excellent. All right. All right. So this is part 3 of the research skills that we are developing in our learners. And the project provides this opportunity for our learners then to deal with a project. And we kind of presented an overview yesterday and the day before, and to say what is the initial ideas, where we're going with this, and really in this presentation of how to get your learners to focus, how to get them to understand what their project is about. That said, we need brainstorming. The learners need to be able to talk to each other. The teams need to talk to each other. It's not just a case of, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then the teacher decides. No, it's not at all. But it's a process. All right. And then tomorrow we will kind of give you some examples of how to present the learner projects to judges. Okay, some just general navigation. Again, Tumelo and Anzani are in the mailbox. Tumelo deals mainly with the MOOC queries. Caspar is recording all these sessions, and all the recordings will be available, or they are available on the MOOC portal. We usually do this on Friday and Saturday, kind of from the week that we've just had. Okay. We really want to equip our coaches. Research skills kind of are those skills that are more and more prevalent, and yet some learners really struggle with it. And I really want to encourage you to start the journey, and then to watch how your learners develop these skills. And a second and a third season in this robotics competition as well allows them then to have more skills, and you'll see how easily it eventually comes. Okay, so this is our session for today, is kind of the next step, the focus. And if you are following in your team meeting guides, these are sessions 5 to session 8, and then session 9 to 12, we're kind of pulling it all together, and we as a presentation then. Okay, so just where you are. So for maybe those of you who weren't in our session yesterday, the theme this year is called Superpowered. That's the theme of the first Lego League competition, challenge competition. And so of all, I think there are 16 missions in total. The robot then must do the missions, and the robot must score the points. Okay. The theme is only used, A, to define the robot missions, and B, to guide the team in their research. Okay, and it's you researching the theme. The missions itself are kind of used as think triggers. They do not define the project. We don't need to have robots in your solution, not at all. But the missions, they call them sparks. I like to call them think triggers. So then it becomes a point of discussion, and you think, okay, how can then we apply this in our research? And I'll hopefully by the end of the session you'll get that. Okay. So, and I'm again going to say why we bother. Why do we bother doing this? Because learners need to grapple with real world issues, and not just like we heard about it, but actually to discuss it, to talk about it, and talk to the experts, talk to the adults who know what they're talking about. Google is not the expert, not at all the expert. Talk to people who are in the field. Read about real world issues. There's more sources of information than Wikipedia. All right. But then learners also need to ask the questions. They need to obviously ask the right questions, but they need to ask relevant questions. So why, on the one hand, whilst we are trying to develop these research skills in our learners, you kind of create the awareness of careers of the future, that there are different ways of doing things. Well, our world is definitely changing, but there must be somewhere along the line, somebody or one of your learners will get the idea and say, this is where I want to invest my time. This is something I would like to do in the future. And so that's kind of the other part of it. You'll see also on all the resources that are available, there's a lot of emphasis on careers, and that kind of links you to the experts. The current people in the field are the experts, and they can maybe guide your learners into careers for the future within the topic of superpowered. Yeah, we need superpowered heroes at the moment. Yeah. All right. So how are we going to do this? Well, you as the coach need to link. There needs to be a linking in the thinking. Okay. So you need to link what the learners see and do and talk about to thinking about, what is the problem? Could I solve this problem? Is it worthy of a solution? But at the same time, you're exposing them to different ways of thinking. All right. And asking the experts, please, as coaches, do not ask the questions. The learners need to ask the questions. They need to have the questions and to kind of focus their ideas. And research is not about a laptop, a Google, and a teacher. You do not get information from just asking your teacher. You definitely don't get information from a laptop. Maybe I'll get back to this just now, but also, if your learners are going to research the topic like hydroelectricity, all right, and they go to Google, great, and they go to YouTube, great. But which videos did they watch? Give me the URLs. Tell me about it. Reflect on what you watched. Tell me why this is a good idea, why this is not applicable. There must be some kind of thinking going on with everything that you have. And I'll show you also tomorrow, your learners need to start collecting data. They need to ask the right questions and collect the data and be able to analyze it. This is not pie in the sky, all right? You've got to keep it real. This is real research. If they can get patents out of it, if they can get innovation awards out of it, yes, all right? Maybe they don't have enough time before a regional competition to develop their project totally, then say, in lieu of this is how far we've got with our research, and these are the things that we have to do to get to there. But please do not let them come to a regional competition, stand in front of the judge and say, well, we think that everybody needs to have a solar panel on their roof. Yeah, but why? Okay, and what on beta, on what data, and what is it going to cost, and who says, and so all that. You can't just make a sweeping statement that's pie in the sky. They have got to be real. And if you want to have a solar panel on everybody's roof, what is it going to cost? What are the implications? How are you going to store it? Remember, the research this season is about a journey. The journey, you've got to tell me, where does the energy come from? You've got to tell me, how do you store it? And you've got to tell me, how do you use it? All right. And you've got to tell me how the three are linked. One of the most important questions that the judges will be asking is, on which energy journey are you? Are you on the blue one, the white one, the yellow one, the orange one? Well, you might not know. For those who've just joined, you might not know. You might not be aware of the different energy journeys. I'm going to explain that to you now. But your team needs to be able to explain to the judges what these energy journeys are. The energy journey has three parts. Where does it come from? How is it stored? And how is it used? All right. Okay. So you've got your 10 learners in your team. Okay. And you've got different types of members. You've got the builders and the programmers and the researchers. But please do not make 2 learners, there we go, in charge of research. And the rest of us can have the fun of building and programming. That's not okay. All right. So you will have those who will take ownership of the research, but every single member of the team needs to be part of the research. Every single member needs to have an opportunity to build something and to program something. It needs to be a collaboration. Okay. Yeah, all learners are different, but everybody needs to be involved in everything else. It's not okay to divide and conquer and say, well, you're the builder, you're the programmer, you're the researcher. Everybody must be involved in everything. Okay. All right. So if you have a team that's participating in a regional or a national or a celebration event, 1 team of learners, 1 robotics kit, and 1 laptop. And each team needs to be registered. Okay. And you can share superpower challenge sets, so you can have multiple teams using the same challenge set. But every team must build and program their robot. They must have a team robot strategy to score points in 150 seconds. The team needs to do the research, and the team needs to do a research presentation, and the team needs to have a team identity. Oh, and they must have fun, which is kind of the driving force of everything else. Okay, so that is for each team. So if you look in your team meeting guides, which you have when you register your teams, there are the 4 parts. The core values, that's your team identity. The robot design is how you build and program your robot. You need to be able to justify it. You can't just say, well, we just built it like this. No, you've got to tell me why you designed it. And your robot game, what is your strategy? How many missions do you have? How many points do you have? In how many seconds? All right. But the focus of these sessions now, today and tomorrow again, is the innovation project. Okay. And there's parts. So you identify your research problem. That's in about sessions 1 to 4. All right. Then you've got to design your new solution, and you've got to create a model. That's more or less session 4 to 9 or 4 to 8, which we're going to do today. And then you need to be able to communicate your solution. You need to be able to pull it all together and present it as a coherent body of knowledge. Okay. Okay, so I've got a Coke pen and I could actually draw on this. So we're kind of here in the middle part here. This is part where you have your identifier. You see, we've done those 4 sessions. We've done the white energy, the blue energy, the yellow energy, the orange energy. We have discussed that in sessions 1 to session 4. Now, so usually, if you're talking to a team, you will get a feel for where your team's interest lies, or what is really pulling them, or what is drawing them to identify a problem in the community. Okay, that is why you write everything down and you take lots of notes and you get as much general overview information as possible. Then in sessions 4 to session 9, you start pulling it all together. You identify a problem, and your problem must be able to explain 1 sentence, 1 full stop, 1 capital letter, 1 full stop. All right. And then you've got to plan what your solution is. Are you going to use an existing solution and zhoosh it up? Or does your team have a whole new, brand new solution? Right. And you've got to then develop this project solution. And then you've got to obviously evaluate and test it. Somehow you've got to evaluate it and test it. Okay. It must be real. It must be something that you can do in your community. Okay. It might take a little longer. It might take longer than the 4 sessions. That's fine. But then that's how the team works on it. And if it needs extra time, then you need extra team members. So kind of you've got 2 parallel sessions running. You've got got the innovation project on the side, and then you've got the robot and the building and programming kind of running in parallel, because you want to get to 1 single solution at the end. All right. So if you look at your, you've got your team meeting guide, that's got your 12 sessions And it's broken up into kind of 4 sessions, kind of the initial research, 4 sessions where you define the solution and share it, and then the last 4 where you pull it all together and you evaluate it. Okay, so for those who were not in our session yesterday, so the problem is your challenge is to improve the energy journey in your community. All right, so your team needs to tell me the energy journey starts with source, this is the storage, and this is and where is the problem? Is the problem in the storage, in the source, in the storage, or in the use of it? All right, you can narrow it down and say, but this is our energy journey, and we are looking at this part of it. So then you have a very clear idea of where it fits in. Okay, and you need to have here, identify a problem, and then you design a solution, an innovative solution. It can be an existing solution that you zhoosh up with innovation, or you can design a whole new solution, all right, in your community. All right. And then if you want some more information, it's in your team meeting guides. Oops, sorry. And just, I also want to highlight this. I should have maybe taken a pink Coke and highlighted this. The top projects do go through to the Global Innovation Award, and where teams, and please read up about it, where teams have profound ideas. Okay, and there, if you go onto the QR code, there is your innovation project resources. If you go onto there, you'll see what is the options. Again, all laid out. Identify your problem, research your solution ideas, create a solution, share your ideas, and then you communicate. Okay, so it's like an iterative looping again. And so just kind of to reinforce it, the white energy is the renewable. So what's the source? How do you store it? And how do you use it? So you're using wind energy for TV. I mean, I'm sure that'll cut down lots of people's television time if they're only allowed to use wind energy. Okay, the water energy, the blue energy is the hydroelectric schemes. Maybe think of a different way of doing it. But look, these are all the 4 that are blue colors. Then your yellow energy is your non-renewable. So that is definitely your fuel for your trucks, and an option of using a car. And then your orange energy is kind of the different ways of doing things. How do we do things differently? So rechargeable batteries, smart grids, and that's kind of the basket for everything else. Okay. All right. So I said to you yesterday, so this is session 1. It gives you an overview. It gives you all the questions. It tells you what white energy is. Work through this. Have this discussion in session 1 with your team. Make some notes. Have a file. Get information and put it all there. But you need to have the discussion. Okay. And then session 2. Session 2 is the yellow energy. No, session 2 was the blue energy. Session 3 is the yellow energy. There's again a whole lot of questions. Have a team discussion about this yellow energy journey. Talk about it and see whether something comes out. Remember, this is only session 3. Then session 4, we go to orange energy. We have a whole discussion about smart grids. And if your learners are visual, get a whole lot of pictures and go and see what things you can find. So only after session 4, now you kind of reflect. And now you've got to put it all together. And at this stage, I think it is a good idea that you, there's a QR code. You download the rubrics. All right. To see what is required of your project. And so this is the rubric that your teams will be evaluated on in a competition. Okay. How did they identify it? How did they identify it? How did they design something? How did they create it? How did they iterate it? And how did they communicate? So those are the criteria against which your team's project is going to be evaluated. But first and foremost, it must address a energy journey. First and foremost, it must be on theme. Your teams cannot be evaluated on a project that is not related to the theme. All right. So I would suggest every team to start with, our energy journey considers the white energy journey. And on that white energy journey, we are focusing on storage. Then you know exactly where your team is. And it's not just a blah, 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 blah session. Okay. Okay. So by the time you come to unit 6, all right. So this is where unit 6 is. You are already having, question 6. Okay. So you're already starting to pull the things. Be sure that your team collects their sources on on the shared location. Make sure that you have a solution that has a potential to be developed, that they can explain their solution clearly. The innovation project planning page can be completed over multiple sessions. You can do it multiple times. There's a whole page for planning the thing. But you need to have ongoing discussions. If a team arrives at a competition and their engineering notebook has nothing in it, then I question how much thinking went into the project. Okay, you need to write in it. It doesn't need to be neat, but there needs to be some evidence that the team grappled with the problem. All right, there needs to be some form of conversation, and you as the coach then need to guide the conversation, make sure that it goes, that there's information, make sure that they're actually engaging in the topics. Okay, so that's session 6. Session 7, again, we're starting to create solutions. We're drawing pictures. Again, you as the coach must be well prepared for the session. You must read over and you must see what is expected at least of session 7. And session 8, we're kind of putting it all together. So session 9, we're starting our planning. Okay, we want to put this together. We want to have the new solution and the designs. We're pulling everything together. You can see here they've got the robot strategy. So we're kind of doing multitasking. We're doing the project and we're doing the robot, and everybody must be involved. Okay. All right. Yes, there are a lot of solutions. There are a lot of reflections from teams that have already done superpower, and I'll share some of that with you tomorrow. But you need to look what they've done. See, get ideas. Some teams like to do a little bit of drama. Some teams need to have a well-rehearsed presentation, but they need to actually own it and enjoy it. Right. Again, the resources, you've got your team meeting guide, which has got the 12 sessions. Your learners have got the engineering notebook of the 12 sessions. The game rulebook describes all the missions, so you can use that for wording, for terminology. And then you have the multimedia resource guide that's got 19 pages of links and extra information which you can use. And pull that multimedia. If you don't know where to start, if you're doing white energy, go and look in the resource guide on white energy and pick some of those links and go and investigate that. It's all part of your deliberations. Okay. Yes, there's lots of videos, lots of guides, a lot of ideas. You need to, and maybe you need to watch them beforehand to make sure that they are relative. But your learners can also go and look at watch videos. They can also do that. All right. So there are 5 steps. You need to understand which energy journey you're on. Okay. You need to be able to say what are the existing solutions, and you don't need to out your thumb. You can ask the experts. You can do a survey. You must have some evidence of discussions. Right. Is it a new solution, or is it just an innovative zhoosh of an existing solution? All right. How does it address the problem? How are you going to share this? Are you going to make a poster? Are you going to have a presentation to the Rotary and the Lions team? Are you going to talk to all the teachers at your school? But there must be a presentation, and you have 5 minutes. A model really helps. A poster helps. I'll show you that tomorrow. But it must be clear what's the problem? What is your solution? Okay. And again, we come back to why bother. We want to develop research skills. We want to develop the 21st century skills with collaboration, with imagination, with innovation. All right. Superpowers is a real world problem, and you can't just, well, it's all messed up, and so that's the end of that. There needs to be deliberation. There needs to be discussion. Keep the theme focus. Every single link that you look at, every single video that you look at, every single person that you talk to, write it down. And ideally, the team needs to take their whole idea with the experts they spoke to beforehand. Let them go and present that to the experts afterwards. They need to be competent and confident, and they need to know what they're talking about in terms of superpowers. Okay. We'll talk about it tomorrow, how to stand up and communicate with clarity, and at all times reflecting teamwork. So not just one learner talking all the time, but you need to have teamwork where a whole lot of team members discuss together what they're going to do in presenting their solution. Again, a model works well. Something visual works well. Some description of it, something that they've made as a reduced size model as well. Okay, so this is kind of the layout, what you're aiming for. Okay, so you're going to have the team, the problem, and existing solutions, lots of pictures, lots of photographs. Okay, and tell us what is your solution. Tell us where is your innovation. If you do sources of information, name the experts. If you have references, name the sources. Costing of the solution. You can't just say, well, it's going to cost me 4,000 Rand. What's costing 4,000 Rand? Let them work out a costing sheet. Let them work out a budget. What was their budget to make the model? What would be the costing to make a real size scale of it? All right. Yeah, please don't just share your solution with the learners in the class. Okay. Find somebody to share with. There are many companies that are doing solar panels. There are many companies doing wind turbines. There are many companies doing solar geysers. There are teams doing or companies doing solar vehicles. Do you want to go and look at solar vehicles? Do you want to look at I mean, there are people who have businesses out of this, and so they are the experts. And so your team needs to go and talk to them, find out what they're doing. Remember, it's a learning experience, and there needs to be some evaluation data. Ask the experts to evaluate it. Ask the company whether you can do a presentation at the company, and then let all the people at the company, or even if just a handful, 5 or 6 people, complete your Google form. And then your learners need to be able to analyze that data and say they agree, they disagree, because at the end, your learners and your team needs to be able to explain, why did they bother? Why did they choose? What problem does it address? Okay. All right. So your homework for tomorrow is to understand the project. Start with an initial research, focus on an energy journey, and then you say, what is the problem and what are existing solutions? And then the team needs to come up and say, what is your solution to this whole thing? And so we've got some ideas of how we're really going to give you homework for tomorrow. And but let's first just see whether there are any questions. Let's just first take the questions, and then we will come back to this. All right. Any questions? Okay, so Maroti Primary School, no, this is building on yesterday. So yesterday's presentation was really looking at the 4 different energies. And today is then how do we pull it all together? And then we focus on, because in session 1 to 4, you do the initial energy discussion. Sessions 5 to session 9, which is the next 4 sessions, your team needs to decide which of the 4 energy journeys that they're going to deal with. All right. I just added a kind of an introduction. Okay. Hope that answers your question. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Anybody want to put their hand up? Anybody want to talk about their research, how they see it? I think it's really important. So this is part of the journey, and maybe your team journey. You can't just sit down with a class and say, so what do you think the energy problem is? Because that is then assuming that your learners have a solid foundation and a fun understanding of what energy is and what the problems are. So if you actually, and that's why the first 4 sessions are vitally important. All right, have a discussion. Have a discussion of what is the renewable energies. And be led by the questions in that session. Have another discussion about hydroelectricity. Hydroelectricity. The problem is that you need water, and so in a country where there's not water, maybe that's a problem. But when the floods come, could we not have things potentially in place to gather all that? I mean, Achrabi's waterfall is a gold mine, for lack of another word, of energy. All right, then let that let that water, I mean, you don't have to have it, but then how do you store that energy? And can we store that energy quick enough? Can we then flick between energy sources and say, right, if the Grobis waterfall flows, then we have hydroelectricity. If it doesn't flow, then we switch to this kind of electricity. You don't need to have only one source of energy. All right. But if you haven't done the 4 sessions and you haven't had a discussion about energy, how are your learners going to then move to say, okay, so what is the problem? Okay, because what will come out in the 4 discussions, because in the 4 discussions, we're not focusing on the problem, all right? We're having discussions. And from those discussions, we'll come out and say, but that could be a problem, and that could be a problem. And you write it all down, okay? So by the time you come to session 5, then you think, okay. So let's look at all 4 energy journeys. Which one is worthy of further investigation? All right. And for goodness sake, you as a coach, don't choose one. Let the team deliberate and decide, okay, this is going to be a problem. I think with superpowers, we have enough literature around. There's enough happening. For me, I think it's just not fast enough. Everybody thinks, oh, well, we'll get solar and we'll get wind and we'll get whatever. But maybe it's not the whole country getting solar and the whole country getting wind. Maybe there's something else. Maybe their team members see something else. Maybe they have a really cool idea of something else. Okay. Yeah, I mustn't say anything. I must rather not say anything because I've got lots of ideas. But for each team to maybe have different idea. Maybe how do we do things differently? Maybe there is a different way of doing life in terms of energy. Okay. Okay. All right. No questions. Any comments? Any coaches here that have taken a team to research a project that want to share something maybe? I really, for those who don't have teams, I really encourage you to volunteer as a project judge for the upcoming regionals and national series, and maybe come and see how the teams present their research, and maybe get an idea of how deep some of these students go to research their topics. Yeah. Okay. All right. If there's no further questions, then I think we are done for the day. I'm going to ask who's going to close. Yes, I'm listening.
You have to post that other document quickly.
Yes, post it. Absolutely. Yes, good idea.
Explain it quickly or not?
Yes, please do. Thanks, Casper.
Okay, let me just get my open here. So for the superpower, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So this is a small document that we usually, some of the more advanced teams and some of the small teams also do. What they do is they take the game rulebook, they take it and then they start analyzing it in small groups or individually. So they say, all right, the first mission is innovation project. It is worth a certain amount of points. You get extra points if a certain condition is met. Then we say, all right, what kind of mission it is? Is it a push? Is it a pull mission or a drop mission or grab? And then what is the difficulty of the mission? And then any comments. So for example, this is a good 20 points or a good 10 points. And usually some of the, like I said, the teams, they usually do this. And then they strategize, all right, for points and for interest sake, we can only do the following missions because they're all easy and we can do them within enough time to get the most effective points. So I will post this form in the chat area, then you guys can start filling it out also.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casper. Yes, and so maybe using that form as well. So for tomorrow is to come with your research ideas and say which one of those missions kind of catches your attention. We can just talk about it here in the group. It doesn't need to be what your team is doing, but maybe just look at the mission names and say which one of those mission names on that list trigger some innovation or research thinking. Okay, thanks, Casper. Thanks for that. Okay, so that's your homework. All right. So to come with a completed list, watch some videos, get some ideas, get some get some thinking around what the project could be. If anything triggers your ideas and things, something like that. Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, team, for being here. Tumelo, you can close the session for us then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hoos, for today's session. And really looking forward to tomorrow's session. I heard you saying that tomorrow you'll explain what one will need for presentations, such as the purpose of presenting, communication, clarity, as well as completing the work, as well as teamwork, which is the major thing. Please take note, dear participants, that this session is very helpful because, for example, if you might have a question or a suggestion, that will help other team members as well. So don't be afraid next time to send in your questions on the chat box or raise your hand. So without wasting time, I'd like to take this opportunity and thank Dr. Hoos and Casper for today's session. And our email address is on the chat box, which is i-set@uniset.ac.za. To those who are watching the recording, thank you so much for taking the time once again. This is the end of the recording. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good Wednesday. Stay safe in load shedding, and we'll see each other then tomorrow. Okay.